You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and I have to start with Yankees Orioles. The Orioles won 4-2, leaving the Yankees in sole possession of last place in the AL East. The Yankees have scored the least amount of runs of any team in the American League, excluding the Detroit Tigers. The highlight or lowlight of yesterday's game, depending on how you look at it, for me, it was a lowlight, was Aaron Boone getting ejected after complaining to Greg Gibson that he didn't give Boone enough time to challenge a very interesting play. It's the top of the 8th inning. The Yankees are down 4-1, but they're threatening. They have the bases loaded, 2 men out. Gio Urshela is at bat. He hits a single to left field. Clint Frazier scores. It's 4-2. DJ LeMahieu is rounding third. Aaron Judge is rounding second. Mind you, this is not an incredibly deep ball. Judge is out at third by a mile. That was the correct call. It was a good throw by Austin Hayes. A good tag by Michael Franco. That's not the issue. The issue was the umpires ruled that Judge was tagged out before LeMahieu touched home plate. So the run doesn't score. It stays 4-2. Now, it was really, really close. I don't think that the run would have counted. I think that LeMahieu was just a step too slow. I'm not blaming LeMahieu. It's just, I don't think he touched home plate before Judge was tagged out. But it's a big moment in the game. There is a pretty big difference between 4-3 and 4-2. Boone was right to want to look at it. That's a play that should have been challenged. And look, did Greg Gibson give Boone enough time to make a decision? Boone will say no, Gibson will say yes. The rule is that managers get 20 seconds to make a decision on whether to challenge or not. Now, having said that, 20 seconds is an incredibly short amount of time. That's a third of a minute. And when does the clock start? It's not like there's a clock that appears in the outfield. Does it start from the second the play ended? Does it start when the umpire looks into the dugout? Does it start when the manager holds his hand up like, hold on a minute, don't go anywhere? Does it start when Brett Weber, the Yankees replay assistant, starts looking at the play? I don't know. I think that's an interesting caveat to this. Now, truthfully, I didn't even know that managers had 20 seconds. I understand why you'd give them such a short period of time. You want to keep the game going. We all know pace of play is a huge issue in baseball. And realize there aren't timeouts like in football. If you want a longer look at something, you can call a timeout. You don't need to rush to the line of scrimmage. Even then, if you're on offense, you can take 39 seconds. But I will say this, though. That play was the last play of the inning. There was no debate that Judge was out. The only thing is, did LeMahieu's foot touch home plate first? It's the end of an inning. Why is Boone not getting more time? Why is that not an addendum to this rule? That if it's the last out of an inning, you get more time. The players can still run off the field. That's perfectly fine. The Yankees can take the field. Judge, instead of staying at third base, can go to right field. It's perfectly fine. Why are managers not given more time to look at something that doesn't affect pace of play? You can't tell me that challenging that affects pace of play. What, it's going to take a long time to look at whether LeMahieu touched home first? Yes, it will. It's a big moment in the game. Let's take our time and make sure we get it right. No one begrudges people for that. If it's an obvious play and you're taking 2 minutes, that's when people have an issue. That was a bang-bang play. I did think that Judge was tagged out first. But it was extremely close. It came down to frames. That's the kind of thing that you need to take a long, hard look at. No one would mind that. I mean, come on, what are we doing here? You've got to understand the moment. The most important play of the game. You've got to make sure you get it right. Now, Boone is not without blame here. I'm not blaming him for coming out and arguing. He's trying to light a fire under his team's ass. Lord knows the Yankees need it. That's not what I'm upset about. I'm upset that Boone just didn't challenge it right away. Do you really need verification from Brett Weber and Carlos Mendoza? I mean, come on. It's the biggest moment of the game. Just make the signal and let's see. It happened right in front of you. You couldn't tell that was a bang-bang play? You needed someone to tell you? Are you kidding me? Just make the signal and let the chips fall where they may. This isn't hockey we're talking about. Where offsides from a minute before the goal is dissected. We're talking about something clearly obvious that a 4-year-old would have known to look at. Booney, just make the signal. Worst comes to worse, the run doesn't score. But you've got to make them look at it. It's not like you lose anything if you lose the challenge. It's not like it becomes 4-0 instead of 4-2. I was at Game 4 of the 2018 ALDS between the Yankees and Red Sox. The last play of that game was a Gleyber Torres groundout to Eduardo Nunez at third base. It was pretty obvious that Torres was out. But Boone had the umpires look at it anyway. Deep down he knew that the challenge wasn't going to work. Field and Culbreth didn't suddenly develop cataracts. Torres was out, but he challenged anyway because it was a big moment in the game. It's the same thing here. I understand that there is a difference between an April baseball game and Game 4 of the ALDS. But the sentiment still holds. It's a big moment. You've got to realize that. Make them look at it. You don't need approval from Brett Weber and Carlos Mendoza. You're the freaking manager. Now, in all fairness, I shouldn't be singling Boone out. At the end of the day, if the run had counted, it just would have been 4-3. It's not like the Yankees would have tied the game or taken the lead. No, the Orioles still would have won that game. But that brings up another issue. How do you make Matt Harvey in 2021 look like the Dark Knight again? This isn't 2013 Matt Harvey we're talking about. This is 2021 Matt Harvey, where he's a Baltimore Oriole. He put up dreadful seasons for the Angels and the Royals. Now he's an Oriole. He really has not looked that great in his 4 previous starts. He hadn't pitched more than 5 innings. He goes 6 innings against the Yankees, only gives up 3 hits. Only gives up 1 run. It was his best start of the season. The birthday boy, Aaron Judge, drove Giancarlo Stanton in on an RBI double. That was it. That was all the Yankees could do against 2021 Matt Harvey. God, this team is tough to watch. They only get 4 hits the whole game. They left 14 guys on base. You've got your cleanup hitter up. In the top of the 8th with the bases loaded, 1 out. Rougned Odor, let's go. Get your signature Yankee moment. No, I'm just going to strike out swinging against an ineffective Tanner Scott. Can we get anything going in the bottom of the 9th? Nope. The ball never left the infield. Hell, Judge never should have been trying for third in the first place. You never make the last out at third. What are you doing? Trying to be a hero? I mean, my God, you ran the Yankees out of the game. The reality is the Yankees right now just are a terrible baseball team. You thought taking 3 out of 4 from the Indians in Cleveland could be the start of something. They're going to Camden Yards. They've owned the Orioles for a really long time. Doesn't seem like it. I know they've got 3 games left. And if the Yankees win all 3 games, they move to 12-13. But do you really think they're going to win all 3 games? At this point, I'll just be happy with a split. I'm not jumping off a cliff yet, but let me tell you, I'm getting ticked off. After the Orioles, the Yankees come home to face the Tigers in a 3-game series. They better sweep the Tigers. I'm going to be there on Sunday. If they don't sweep the Tigers, it may be time to start sounding some alarm bells. Moving on now to the Rockies firing their general manager, Jeff Bridich. You can't make this stuff up. Yesterday, I praised the Rockies. I said they were 8-13, better than a lot of people thought they'd be. Were they a good team? Absolutely not, but maybe they wouldn't be a laughingstock. Then right after that, they fire the GM. You can't make it up. Look, I understand that the Rockies are the worst team in the National League. I get that. 8-13 is not good. But you know what? If you were to go to Colorado and ask Rockies fans would they sign up for, let's say, double-digit wins at the end of April, because it's very possible that they can win 2 more games before the month is out, they'd sign up for that in a heartbeat. There were some people saying that this team would be lucky to win 60 games. They really weren't abysmal. Oh, but Jacob, they just got shut out by the Giants 12-0. Anthony DeSclafani looks like the second coming of Juan Marichal. You don't like DeSclafani, what are you talking about? Bridich was fired before that. And yeah, I don't like DeSclafani, there's no question. But the Giants aren't a bad team. They're 15-8. They're tied with the Dodgers for first place in the NL West. Look, I do think they're going to come back down to earth, but for now, there's no shame in losing to the Giants. Also, if you weren't sold on Jeff Bridich, which it's clear you weren't, you fired him less than a month into the season. Why did you let him trade Nolan Arenado? Why would you let him make that franchise-altering trade if he was on the hot seat? Yes, it was a terrible trade. The Rockies gave Arenado away, no question. But here's a crazy idea. If you're not sold on Bridich, don't let him make that decision. Dick Monfort is a hands-on owner. If he'd said, this is the package you put together, this is what you think is best, you're absolutely nuts, forget about it, you're gone, I don't think anyone would have minded that. Instead, you let him make the trade. You let him get killed by the entire baseball media. And then 3 months later, he's gone. Jeff Bridich is not a good baseball mind. He did a bad job with the Rockies. I'm not saying this guy was Dan O'Dowd. The Troy Tulowitzki trade did not work. The Ian Desmond signing did not work. bringing in Wade Davis, Jake McGee, and Brian Shaw did not work. Replacing DJ LeMahieu with Daniel Murphy did not work. Jeff Bridich should not be a GM again, but the Rockies were 8-13 at the time of the firing, better than a lot of people thought they'd be, and you just let him make a franchise-altering trade. It makes no sense. The timing of it doesn't make sense. The best thing for the Rockies to do right now is just go on a fire sale. If you're giving up on the team already, take that to its natural conclusion. Blow the whole thing up. Trevor Story needs to be traded. John Gray needs to be traded. Herman Marquez needs to be traded. I'd say Charlie Blackmon needs to be traded, but he's gotten off to a terrible start. I mean, if you wanted to trade guys like Raimel Tapia and Ryan McMahon and Robert Stevenson, I could be talked into that. You've got to blow this thing up. Now that you've charted this course, you've got to follow it. But my God, do I feel sorry for Rockies fans. The only thing that they have to look forward to is the All-Star game in about 2.5 months. Moving on now to Angels-Rangers. And Shohei Ohtani had an incredible game. He started, he pitched 5 innings, he only gave up 3 hits. He didn't pitch well in the first inning, gave up 4 runs, made a really bad pitch to Nate Lowe. But after that, he settled down. And he actually got the Angels right back into the game. He had a 2 RBI double in the top of the second. That made it 4-3 Rangers. Mike Trout then singled to score Ohtani. After that, it was all Angels. Ohtani went 2 for 3 with 2 RBIs and 3 runs. And he pitched 5 innings. Only gave up 3 hits, struck out 9, and got the win. It was an incredible performance. I am worried about how sustainable it is. Ohtani is so important to the Angels. He's actually leading the American League in homers with 7. He's hitting 300 right now. He has 18 RBIs. You really can't afford to lose him for an extended period of time. I understand that they have Mike Trout and Jared Walsh and Justin Upton and Albert Pujols. I get that, but Ohtani is really important to the Angels. I'll say this. If I was an Angels fan and Ohtani got hurt from pitching and he had to miss a bunch of games, he couldn't even DH, that would tick me off. So far, it's working. But I do fear that the Angels are playing with fire a little bit. I just don't want to see anything happen to him. I'm not 100% convinced that being a two-way player is sustainable. I don't care who it is. I think it's just too much for the human body to bear. Alright, now I'll give you some NFL Valk talk. And Eric Flowers is back in Washington. The Dolphins traded him to the Washington football team in a swap of late round picks. There are no specifics on the picks yet. Presumably, it's nothing earth-shattering. This is interesting for a bunch of reasons. Firstly, Flowers signed a 3-year, $30 million contract to leave Washington for the Dolphins just last year. So Flowers plays 1 year on that deal. Didn't have a bad year. 65.9 overall grade according to Pro Football Focus. Was a much better pass blocker than he was a run blocker, which is the opposite of what he was with the Giants. I mean, that was all you saw. Why does Washington want Flowers back? This guy was a bust for the Giants. He did nothing for them, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, he wasn't a good Giant. There's no question, but he did resurrect his career with Washington. In 2019, he had a 64.1 overall grade. Again, better pass blocker than run blocker. And I just told you what he did last year. But it is funny. You sign a big deal with the Dolphins, and you leave Washington, and then a year later, the Dolphins trade you back to Washington. Boy, is he going to have to eat some crow. I mean, it's a good move for Washington, don't get me wrong. They really didn't need to upgrade their offensive line. It was one of their strengths last year. Their left guard last year was Wes Schweitzer. He put together a really good season, a 69 overall grade according to Pro Football Focus. But you know what? If you can add some depth on the O-line for just a swap of late round picks, you get a guy who can start in a pinch and be solid. That's really good. Ereck Flowers is now one of the best backup offensive guards in the NFL. Now, some people are saying that this means that the Dolphins are going to take Penei Sewell at 6 overall. I don't see it. It wouldn't be a bad pick, don't get me wrong. I just still think they're going to take a wide receiver. With Jamar Chase coming off the board at 5 to the Bengals, Devontae Smith gets reunited with Tua Tagovailoa. The Dolphins went very O-line heavy in the draft last year. Austin Jackson, Robert Hunt, and Solomon Kindley. I don't think they're going to use the 6th overall pick on an offensive lineman. I will say this, though. It's kind of interesting how willing the Dolphins are to move on from their big free agent signings. Last year, they signed Kyle Van Noy, Shaq Lawson, Ereck Flowers, and Jordan Howard. None of those guys are Dolphins anymore. Van Noy was cut. He's now a Patriot again. Lawson was traded for Benardrick McKinney. Flowers was obviously just traded. And Jordan Howard didn't even make it through the season with the Dolphins. That's a bad job by Chris Grier. You spend all this money in free agency, and these guys don't even last more than one season with the team. Okay, it won't hamstring the Dolphins with dead cap. I understand that. But there are a lot of free agent signings from last year that are key parts of their team still. Corey Littleton, James Bradbury, Blake Martinez, Tom Brady. The list goes on. That's a bad job by the Dolphins. I understand wanting to cut your losses. If you really don't think it's going to work, and it's not going to leave you with too much dead cap, I understand the argument for getting rid of these guys. But the fact that you need to move on from these guys is a bad look. And it's not going to endear you to future free agents. It's a bad look for the Dolphins. It really, really is. I'll close this show out by talking about the death of Gino Hayes, who died yesterday from chronic liver disease at the age of 33. We saw the news a few days ago that Hayes had entered hospice. You knew he wasn't long for this world. But to die at such a young age, 33, man, that's tough. Hayes had a solid career. He wasn't great. He wasn't Luke Kuechly or David Harris. But you know what? He put together 7 solid seasons in the NFL. That's pretty darn good. He was drafted by the Buccaneers in the 6th round of the 2008 NFL Draft. And really didn't play a lot. Then his sophomore season, the Buccaneers gave him a starting role, and he made the Buccaneers look really smart. He had a 63.8 overall grade, according to Pro Football Focus. He had 85 tackles. That was a career high for him. He did a good job replacing a legend in Derrick Brooks. And he followed that up with another pretty good season. In 2010, he had a 65.1 overall grade, 72 tackles. It looked like he was going to turn into a key piece of the Buccaneers defense for a while. Then, in 2011, he did not play well. He had just a 46.8 overall grade. Didn't have a sack. Only had 51 tackles. The Buccaneers let him walk in free agency. He signed with the Bears. Played well at the end of the season. Then he signed a 2-year deal with the Jaguars. And had some good seasons. He had a 63 overall grade in 2013 and a 68.2 overall grade in 2014. That was the last year of his career. Like I said, we knew he was sick, but I hope that on his deathbed, he thought to himself, you know what? I had a solid NFL career. I worked my whole life to achieve this goal, and I put together a career that I can be proud of. May he rest in peace. Tomorrow, you're going to get the interview that I'm going to do with Lou Friedman, the author of the book on Johnny Vandermeer. Until then, I am Jacob Valk saying that I never threw a spitball intentionally, but I do sweat easily.